Hi there. Today I'm just going to take a couple pieces of scrap paper, scraps, the back end of other watercolor paper, and play around a little bit. So when I take a photo, I showed the photo right up front, right here, one that I took a while back, and I'm just going to separate it into a couple of layers using a really loose watercolor style. So you could take any landscape that has kind of a definition to it. I'm going to be doing this on dry paper, so you have to work kind of fast. I'm pulling all my kind of colors together. I think we're straight there. And I'm going to kind of play fast and loose with this. Maybe not identically matching the photo exactly, but taking it for a suggestion. It was a moody day, so probably get into kind of some moody colors. Just kind of a fast, loose wash. I like to start with the kind of 3 primaries and maybe gray it down a little bit. So my blue, I'm going to put a teeny, because it was kind of a gray day, I'm going to put a dot of red in it. Just enough to change from a bright blue to kind of a gray. So I grayed it down slightly. I'm going to be working on dry paper, so I have to go pretty wet. These are small, just a little larger than 5 by 7. So I'm going to start in by just looking at kind of the light and loose mood of the sky. Once I put the first wash down in any watercolor, especially sky, because you want the bright light to come through, I don't go back in and interrupt that part. So I'm going to pull some water and just move the water, or move the paint with my brush. I like to just kind of pick that up and push it around. I'm kind of looking for the mood, not for exact number of clouds that day. Pick up a little more water, move it around. Pick up the edge of it with a little water, move it around. Oh, that got a little too dry right there. And I'm trying not to bloom in there. Pick up a little bit more and attach to that. This looks a little bloomy, so I'll have to be careful there. If you don't want your sky or your clouds to bloom, which is the water's pushing up against that edge, monitor how much water is going in your brush. See, this is an edge that I want to loosen up. So I'm going to kind of push it around. I forgot to get a paper towel. Okay, we'll just bring that down. Work with what your water's doing to the paint. Don't try to manage it so much. That bloom may or may not work. I might soften it a little bit later. Not sure. But again, remember, I'm just trying to get the mood. It's always going to be lighter as you come down to the horizon. Pick up a little bit more blue, because it has some kind of movement horizontally through there. Oh, there's my paper towel. It's easier to monitor the water. Picking up a little bit more water to soften this line through here. This bloom may actually work. We'll see if we're going to leave it there. Okay, pulling it down. On the photo, you'll see that it almost gets to a bright white down at the horizon. And that's where you're going to get your atmosphere. Pull a little bit of that bright out of there. Kind of softly. Again, I try not to go back in and disturb any of this because you'll lose the light. It has a slight fog tint to it, so I'm going to put just a dash, barely a pin dot of that yellow in there to kind of foggy it up a little bit. Barely touching the paper. Barely. Now, this is getting a little too dry, so I want to keep things soft again, taking the water out of my brush, manipulating it a little bit. Keep things really soft. This is going to work because it just gives a suggestion of drying. Okay, so there's a little range of a mountain back there. This is up at Fall River near Bernie. So I'm going to put that in there just as it's drying. It'll give me a little suggestion of that ridge back there. Add a little lavender to that so it lightens it up. It's a little brighter than the picture, but that's okay. Pull some more of that white out. I don't want this edge right here to get hard. I want to keep it very subtle, but yet keep the light. You'll see this is starting to dry a little bit, which will give us an effect of maybe another mountain line there, but I'm going to just soften it. Because the next row of trees, so I'm just trying to work with where it's drying and where it's still wet. So this next line of trees, I'm going to make my green with my, I'm using a Prussian blue and a little bit of yellow. And this has to dry slightly in order to get, you'll see the trees just start to peek up in there. It's a tree, but it's just a suggestion. It's not a pine tree. Okay. I'm gonna let this dry just a little bit. And I can start kind of at the bottom so that this line that's here will start to dry. Maybe put a touch of red into that green to darken it a little bit. It was kind of a foggy, rainy day up there. Okay. Taking the water out of my brush because it's going to be nice and dark right here. There's no set tree as yet because I'm still working on just tapping this in the bottom. That's where the dark is going to be. And instead of each tree, I'm just kind of looking at where the dark is going to be at the bottom of that hill. Then I can start to suggest, is that too crooked? Okay, straighten it up. Then I can suggest, as this is drying, where that tree line is going to be. So again, I'm not making individual trees, I'm suggesting the top of a tree line. It's something that you can kind of do and play with how wet your paper is, how dry it's going to be. Darken it at the bottom. And you can see this top line, it's starting to dry a little bit, so it's not moving as much. And I'm going to add more of the dark blue in here. I want that really nice and dark. It was almost ready to rain, I think. Okay, so the next section down, you can see this is dry, so it stopped there. This is wet, so I'm gonna, it's still moving a little bit, so I'm just gonna leave it. The next line down, I'm gonna go with a bright green. So start with my yellow and add a little bit of blue. And I'm gonna not quite touch that line, just barely let it move in there. This is the rice fields, the wild rice fields in MacArthur. Okay, so the next line down. And then there's actually, where they flooded the fields, are pretty, where the water comes in, I'm gonna show you here, are pretty white. So I'm just gonna leave those as stark white at this point. They flood them just like they do here in this area. Okay, but then at the bottom of that section is dark again. I'm gonna move kind of fast. And then there's another row of water, so I'm going to leave that. Leave it white. And then there is just a couple of streaks where the fields come in. And they're water, so they're going to be pretty straight. There's 3 rows of water, so leave it there. And then it starts to get into the middle ground and it grays down a little bit, so I'm going to add a little bit more red right here and just skim it through. So you can see there's no detail here. There's just breaking up spaces in here. And what I'm going to do in the front is just let it kind of go back to the grass. Okay, so all I've done is I've divided my sky, my middle ground, another middle ground. This could have a few more bushes, but I'm not concerned with that. Then I'm going to tie it together in kind of shadow right up here where those bushes are going to start. You see I haven't used a lot of colors. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this dry. I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to straighten it up a little bit so it's not anywhere near what the picture shows. See if I can put them side by side. I don't know. So just a suggestion. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry. Okay, we're pretty dry. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to just tie some of these sections together. And there's some little, just some suggestions of trees that pull this part up into here. And I'm going to be using my green, add a little purple to it to make just a nice dark shadow of a tree. So, just a small thin brush, and I'm going to tie these together. This gave a little suggestion there that might be a few in there. Maybe I don't want them that dark. I'm going to pick up a little bit of water, push them around a little bit. So it's just tying this piece of ground. I'll connect this too. I'm just kind of squiggling it around. Maybe it's going to come from this part of the field. Barely touching my paper. Remember, we're just putting suggestions in there. No big, definite hard lines. I always start my trees from where they grow, which is down here. If I start up here, what's going to happen is it's going to kind of get out of control. Make them all a little different size and height. I'm just, when you used to get in trouble for doodling, in the classroom, well, this is where it's gonna it's gonna help you just attach them to the ground a little bit. The paper's still just slightly wet, so that kind of tied that into there. There's a lot more in there. Maybe I'll put one more here to break up that little white sliver. There's a lot of pine trees up there too. Maybe make it oh, in fact, the big one I'm going to put on the left is a pine tree. So we'll do one more here okay, now for the big center of interest here. And it's going to come all the way down to this section. So I always try to just put the height in there first. Oh, and this is the scary part. Here it is. Just the height first. And I never put it in as tall as I want to go because it will grow kind of out of control. Okay, so this big tree on the left is what I'm going to be looking at. Okay, just start doing all the squiggle stuff. I always do one side first, like here, so that my other side on the right-hand side isn't perfectly symmetrical. We're not making Christmas trees from the Christmas tree farm. Okay, I think I can go a little higher. It's gonna get pretty bigger and more solid down in here. And this one's got kind of a weird branch off the side for a pine tree. Okay, we don't want to leave it with half. Go on the other half. when there's these nice little specks of light that stayed in there, don't cover them up. You know, if it's a pretty spot, just kind of leave it. Even just that little smidgen of light in there. Okay, so it's gonna get darker and thicker all the way down here. I don't want to put you to sleep. Even that little piece of water that's in there, leave it. Don't cover it completely up. It's those little sparks that tie things together. Okay, so this is that weird kind of tree. It's gonna come up and almost give you a second tree. If you've been up there, you'll see it's very weird. And then there's another one that comes up in beside it. And then I'll play off of those branches, get them going. I'm still using the blue and yellow, darkened with a little bit of green, red, sorry. They're teeny tiny up at the top. Remember, we're trying to leave those little tiny areas of light. Keep my hand out of the way here. Okay, and then there's a lot of more little branches I'll get to. There's another squiggly tree right here. I'll kind of pull them together, which is easier for me to do upside down, but I'm not going to turn it upside down. So you can get real crazy with all of the branches, really define them. But remember, we're just trying to stay kind of loose in here. And then I'm going to give it a little bit of my sky color. Picking up, back up in this, and just slash in a couple of where they might have a shadow from the tree. But actually I'm just looking at balancing the colors. Doesn't have to be a shadow. Okay, so a stripe, a soft stripe. It gets a little drier, light, tying things together, and it doesn't have to take you long. Just take a landscape and play with the paper a little bit. Okay, I'll go for another one. Thanks. Bye.